What if the worst thing you've ever experienced turns out to be the best thing?
Yeah, it's a gateway. It's a doorway.
And for me, that's exactly what happened, because I was fat and happy. I was 270 pounds, right? I wasn't really happy, but I was living life in a way that society smiled upon. I was a business owner. I was making money, right? Like I had my spot in life, but I really wasn't that happy.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is I needed to go through this to open up and to see things completely different. And I've been able to have experiences I'd never had before because I was alpha male and because of my stories. I would have continued to drive everything the way that I always did.
And before your injury, would you say you were healthy, quote unquote?
No, absolutely. In no way was I healthy. And then you learn how to soften, and better information comes in, and then you hand better information out. So the reality of it was I didn't just heal from this accident. My whole family healed.
Yeah.
We all got better because his dad calmed down and learned how to communicate more from the heart.
Yeah.
Everybody's value went up.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Two Thumbs Up podcast. Dr. Todd here today. Want to say hello, good morning. I got my really good buddy here with us today, Danny Johnson. And thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you inviting me.
We've talked about this for a minute.
Yeah.
And so Dan and I met at Lifetime Fitness in the yoga room. We're the 50-year-olds in the yoga room, right? And it's been a pleasure to meet with you and talk with you and get to know you over the last few months. And I'm super grateful for you came on the show. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you having me. I watched a show with Anna here just recently, and it was funny because you talked about how you guys met and you had left the place, right? Uh-huh. And then you had that feeling you had to go back.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you hear him? Like in life, we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because the day I met you, I remember very distinctly, I had this overwhelming feeling, I need to talk to this gentleman. And I didn't know why. And I started walking out and I caught myself. And I was like, no, turn around, go back. And it was just so interesting to me, right? Because the second that I started talking to you and found out what you did, it was something I was struggling with.
Yeah. And
I was looking for something, some therapy. I needed to do a little bit of cognitive therapy.
So you've kind of been on your own experience the last couple of years, and you've really taken on your health, and you've really, jumped into some areas. Let's kind of jump back in time a little bit, and you own your own company. You run your own deal, but you were also a motocrosser.
Yeah.
So how long had you been doing that?
Since I was 13 really is when I started, but I quit in there just out of, opportunity, I guess, right? Life gets a hold of you.
Right.
And so, I did it for a few years and then too heavy in sports in high school, so I quit riding. I came back to it when I was about 30 years old and just absolutely love to ride dirt bikes. But I love everything that gets your adrenaline up. I have ADHD, and so the reality of it is when we engage in some of these activities, it calms our brain down. So I really enjoy riding dirt bikes, but I fly paramotors and I ride snowmobiles and just about anything you can think of, right? That gets your blood up.
So get you moving that direction. So a few years ago, you were riding, minding your own business, having a great day.
Yeah.
And kind of outline what happened that day.
Yeah, so we had been out riding. There was 4 of us, and it was a group of people that we always went camping with. Mm-hmm. And I had my nephew out that day. He was new to riding, and he was in his mid-20s. And I remember he went down, and his wrist was a little bit sore. And I told him, I said, hey, look, we don't ride when we're sore because that's when you get fatigued, and then you're going to make a mistake, and then you're going to get hurt. So I told the other 2 gentlemen we were with to go ahead and take off, and we were going to go back to camp really slow. So that's what we did. We just started gimping back to camp really, really slow. And the other 2 gentlemen that we were with, super fast racers, and they took off, went all the way around the mountain, and they just happened to be coming out on the exact same trail we were going out on.
Oh.
Practicing their racing, so they weren't riding properly. One of them cut a corner, hit me head on at about 40 miles an hour. Yep.
So these are 2 guys you had been riding with?
Yes.
And so they took off on their own, came around, hit you head on. And your nephew was with you?
Yeah.
And what happened then?
So from there, it knocked me out for about 3.5 minutes. My nephew had been into some EMT courses and everything, and So he went to check vitals and everything. I had ruptured a muscle in my neck, and so because of that, he couldn't feel a pulse. So when I came to, I just saw my nephew just, snotting on himself, just bawling.
Right, yeah, upset.
And I was confused. I didn't know where I was at, but I was like, hey, what's going on? And then he really, let loose because he realized that I wasn't dead. But it knocked me out for about 3.5 minutes. I knocked 4 teeth out. I was fully geared, had everything on, but I lost 4 teeth, ruptured a muscle in my neck, got stenosis in my back, have had neuropathy in my feet. Just all sorts of stuff. My nervous system wasn't working quite right.
And this was how many years ago?
This was 3 years ago on Memorial Day, so just barely over
3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you're injured up there. How did you get off the mountain that day?
So I've always been kind of a tough guy.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are, right? When Ken Block passed away a couple years ago, you watch the video and it was like, they get to him, he's got a punctured lung, and they grab him and pull him out of the snow, and they're asking him, are you okay? And what does he say? Yeah, I'm fine. I just can't breathe. And so, I think that fight or flight kicks in these situations.
Yeah, you definitely jump into some sort of, it's survival mode.
Yeah. So. And so from there, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what was wrong. I was pretty busted up, and I was busted up bad enough that we felt like, need to get to the ER. So we had set a pin drop out. Luckily, our phones were working. This is out by Cherry Creek by the sand dunes. And the group came in. So I think it was my son. I don't even remember. It's crazy, but I'm pretty sure it was my son. Rode out in a side-by-side and picked me up. Probably brought my other son, and my other son probably took the bike back, and then they took us back to camp, and then we headed off to the ER.
So they took you in that day. And so, you end up in the ER. What was some of the long-term things you started experiencing, a week out, 2 weeks out?
Well, that was kind of the strange thing, and that's what we've talked about before, right? It's just so disappointing that we don't know what we're looking for a lot of the time.
Right.
So I go to the ER, and they ran a quick, CAT scan and a couple other things and told me I was fine and, I'd be all right and go ahead and go home. But right away, there was a lot of things. I wasn't confused, or I was super confused. I wasn't emotionally regulated. I felt these spikes going up and down. I had some vision problems. But after going to the ER and being checked out, I thought I was okay, right? Because they told me, go ahead and go home. Nobody told me to go see...
Follow up with concussion or anything like that.
No. Which is horribly disappointing, right?
That's kind of a sort of a theme we've heard over the course of doing Concussion Pros is that there's no resources per se. Now, if you've had a significant traumatic brain injury where there's a bleed and there's something to see on a CT scan and you have to have neurosurgery and those types of things, there's facilities like that. But to have the follow-up with concussion, they didn't have any resources for you to go to.
Yeah, and I mean that's it, right? It's like, well, if we can see on imaging that something's super dangerous, then there's a problem. But if we don't see it, there's no problem. And it's just not okay, right?
Because the musculoskeletal stuff, it heal. I mean, you're dealing with some neuropathy and different things. Well, how has your life been different? Your relationship's been different. The things you engage with different since you've had this concussion injury.
Well, so I think the biggest thing that I'd say is, first I had to figure out what was going on. So I was super not regulated. I wasn't doing well at work. I couldn't focus. That's another thing that I still, I went through a battery of testing, 3 days of testing with neurologists. And, the study showed that I was operating at about 3 to 5% of normal for short-term cognition, which is some scary stuff, right? It means that learning new things is very, very difficult. So I could tell that there were some problems, but I couldn't put my finger on what they were. Things just weren't.
Was there anybody in your family, your wife, your kids, did they start seeing anything?
They did, but it's, I don't even know how to explain this or articulate this, because still to this day, it's still a little bit of an issue where it's like they love dad so much, and then dad's type A. So a lot of times when people are type A, you don't correct them or tell them when something's off, right? And so just out of love and out of respect, if they saw something that was off with me, they wouldn't say anything. And I had to explain to them multiple times, I need your help. I really need your help. The game has changed. The rules are different. If dad's doing something that's a little bit off, I need you to tell me, because I'm not acutely aware of some of these deficits as I'm going through them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. They kept seeing me in the same light that they always saw me in, right? So they just wouldn't tell me. However,
so some of these deficits you were experiencing, so your family members they noticed some things.
They noticed, but they didn't say anything. And then something came about where they had written some stuff down, and we did this as a therapy type thing, and I was able to read it. And for the first time, they were able to open up and say, this was scary.
So internally, what was your experience? Because there's this thing that happens is where you're having this internal experience with your brain injury, but yet everyone, they've seen you in a certain light for so long. This is Dad. This is what Dad does, but you're having this different experience now. And thank goodness they started being honest with you, and you were open to their feedback. They're open to their.
I was asking for it.
Yeah. Well, how did that assist you? Oh my gosh, man! We met a guy over the weekend at this football camp we were at, and they were explaining to us the situation where this guy had a fall. He fell. He slipped on some grass, and really skull fracture. And he was going through this whole thing, and his wife happened to be there. And the fact that there's things that she sees in him that he doesn't see, and then he's experiencing things internally that he's unable to actually express to her, right? And the message that we were getting was similar to one you're describing, where there's this, and a brain injury is a whole nother wall, or it's a massive wall now between what you're experiencing and then how everyone else historically has seen you.
Yes.
So what was your experience with that, and how did your family assist you that way?
So I've got so many different things that happen. And it's crazy because as you're going through it, it doesn't jump out at you. You have to really think about what's going on. You'll see these subtle little differences and say, hey, like what's going on? So I'll give you an example. I had a buddy who I picked a dirt bike up for, right? And I had received an invoice through my company and because I picked up a few of them. Anyway, he came in and there were some rebates and some different things that were going on. And so I'm trying to chase the paperwork, and this is on a Saturday, and I'm just not all put together. And he starts telling me, well, this is how much I owe you. This is correct? And yes. Because I trust him emphatically, but I'm not joking. I was going back through the invoices that are right in front of me, and I was having the hardest time with just simple math. And so simple processes were slipping from me. And it's one of those things where I figured out that if I could calm myself down and regulate, I can work through the problem. But when you're sitting in front of somebody, like you're doing business, and you're worried about what you look like because, you're struggling, then what happens is that's the real problem. It's not about your deficit. It's about your perceived deficit or how people are going to perceive you. And that's where we get in trouble because we start spinning really fast.
There's this heightened sense of there's a fear response, right? Like, and then it kicks you into this sympathetic fight or flight situation. And then what happens to your cognition?
Well, it blanks, right? And so it like goes the time that you need it the most, because all of a sudden you're like this. What happens is you're just not able to calm down. It's not a problem, but it's a perceived problem. And the reality of it is, if we stay in that story that I have to be perfect all the time and I can't make mistakes and all these other things, if you hold yourself in that spot, you're in trouble. But here's the thing. We all hold ourselves in that spot until we learn how to see a different story.
So as you held yourself in that spot of still, outwardly being the guy, being the business owner, being the entrepreneur, being dad, and all of these things, and you recognize the difficulty of your brain actually managing these situations, what did that create in your life?
Well, so it created some really good stuff too. Because like for me, I always had, my stories and my thought processes is how things were going to go. I always told my boys, I don't care what you do in this world, I'm going to provide for you, and we're going to get you the best education, this, that, and the other. But whatever you do, you're gonna do well. You're gonna make money. You're gonna be good fathers. But whatever you do, I just don't want you doing it here. And what I meant by that was I didn't want them in my company. And the reason why is I have a wonderful company. I own a company called Rock Chuckers. It's construction trucking. And it's been a great living, but it's difficult, right? And I wanted my kids to be able to have all the wonderful experiences of life without that heavy, dark energy that comes all too often in construction.
Right.
And so, I told him, I said, I don't care what you guys do. I just don't want you here. Well, when my oldest son got home from his mission, and this is, he got home actually before the accident, but it was shortly after. He came in one day and he says, Dad, like, I want to stay here. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
But it was like a light bulb experience for me, because he started asking me different questions about money and stuff. And I had this hardcore realization that he probably wasn't going to make the kind of money I make, right? And then he kept asking, if it's good enough for you, why is it not good enough for me? And the whole thing was, I want him to avoid pain. But going through all this, we learned.
So you experienced pain in this experience, meaning you had physical injuries, B, you have cognitive injuries. And so you're in this experience, and you're having some of these deficits. So you've mentioned to me before that it started this journey for you.
Yes.
The previous Danny before the injury, and the Danny that's emerging from the injury. And I've had a lot of conversation with people that have had injuries and life-altering injuries. And it's interesting to me that life opens doorways and gateways, and oftentimes those doorways and gateways outwardly look like pain, trauma, injury, disease, sickness, divorce, all of those things. And it's interesting to me that that's where creation, creator, God, whatever, that's where the doorways opened.
Yes.
And it almost has this beautiful mechanism of, this mechanism of actually saying, I deserve some assistance here.
Yeah.
That humility of this alpha male. And I love this, because there's this idea that powerful men have to, we're always but actually alpha actually means, it may be the leader, but the only reason it's the leader is because he or she is open to follow or walk beside, And
really, where are they generally?
Yeah.
They're leading from behind.
Yes.
They're watching everything in front, right?
Yes. And they're open to when you've been injured, hey, son, hey, what's your wife's name?
Heather.
Hey, Heather, this is what's going on with me.
Yeah.
How has that changed for you?
Well, it's really good, because the thing is that when we're doing everything the way we've always done them, right, we're operating out of subconscious. We're not conscious that we're not good communicators, right? And that's what we find in marriages, is we think that we're communicating really well, and we're just not. And, when we become vulnerable and when we need help, it creates an opportunity in which we can be a lot more open, and we can have better discussions so that we can understand each other a lot better. Yeah. So the reality of it is, this whole thing, it's a very difficult thing, but in the end, it reminds me, I heard Mel Robbins say this recently. She says, what if, right? And she says that all the time. Mm-hmm. But she says, what if the worst thing you've ever experienced turns out to be the best thing?
Yeah. It's a gateway. It's a doorway.
And for me, that's exactly what happened, because I was fat and happy. I was 270 pounds, right? I wasn't really happy, but I was living life in a way that society smiled upon. I was a business owner. I was making money, right? Like, I had my spot in life, but I really wasn't that happy.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, I needed to go through this to open up and to see things completely different. And I've been able to have experiences I'd never had before, because I was alpha male, and because of my stories. I would have continued to drive everything the way that I always did.
And before your injury, would you say you were healthy, quote unquote?
No. Absolutely, in no way was I healthy, not mentally, emotionally.
So it's interesting,
physically.
though, the paradox there.
Yes.
You have this injury that's would be considered a unhealthy event. You get your teeth knocked out, you get concussed in the brain, you have all these neuropathies and different things. That's an unhealthy event.
Yes.
So, it's interesting to me then that the paradox is, because of that event, an unhealthy lifestyle before that, you've shared with me, that's the gateway for you to emerge into health.
Yes. Yeah. And the reality of it is, and so Joe Dispenza says this all the time. He says, most of the time we make these large corrections in our life because we've gone through something just horribly traumatic, right? And his whole thing is, don't wait until you go through trauma.
Yeah.
You can change your life. Start changing your stories. Start changing your beliefs about yourself. And learn how to be happy, right? Well, the reality of it is I was just happy enough that I don't think I ever would have changed. And so for the very first time in my life, I asked for help. I wasn't aware of it before, but I wasn't in a place where I could allow myself to ever ask for help with anything. And what a wonderful thing when we start doing this, right? And then the deficits are the biggest blessing ever. And the reason they are is because as I'm teaching my boys how to run my company and everything, right? I've never been a good teacher. I'll start showing something and they start messing it up and I jump in and push them away and then I do it real quick and then you got it. Like I'm a horrible teacher. I've always been like that. But this created a situation in which I had to step back completely and just watch them. And I had the realization, nothing's that important. It just isn't. Like if they make a mistake,
what has
okay.
What has that taught you about being a teacher?
Well, it's taught me that the reality of it is that we need to create space in which people can try things, and then we need to support them properly. The reality of it is they cannot become strong without pushing the weight. I would have hindered my own kids by staying in the way, by working it.
Who created the space for that?
Well, let's say God did, because he knew that I wouldn't step out of the way, so he gave me an opportunity to see it differently.
And you were open to the opportunity.
I was not at the very first, because right after my accident, I was still the same person. But then I had to, like you said, go on this journey and find some things out. The neurologist I worked with, he asked to speak to my wife. And right after he was done doing the assessment and everything, he said to my wife, he says, this guy is an enigma. The problem is he's type A, but he's type A that grew up poor and then became wealthy and now has lost his abilities. He said, when this happens, the story is always the same. I've never seen it not this way, is what he told my wife. He said the first year, they lose the company. Second year, they lose the marriage. And the third year, they kill themselves every time. And I was on that path. And I knew I was in trouble. And so I prayed every day and was trying to look for answers and find some help. And ultimately, what I learned was I wasn't broken, just my stories were.
Yeah.
My expectations of myself were very unhealthy and very unrealistic. And the reality of it is all of our stories are unhealthy and unrealistic because we've picked them up organically through just living this experience from society, from our parents, from church, from wherever. And there's a lot of stuff in there that is well intended, but doesn't have the correct outcome. Does this make sense?
It creates more of a bind.
Yeah, so it gives us stories to put pressure on ourselves, to see ourselves in not the kindest light, to, it's like, well, I've got to be therefore perfect, right?
So this self-judgment.
Yes.
This having to be the alpha, all of those things that drive, at some point in time, there's events that will happen. It's like you mentioned this earlier. It's like life can throw snowballs. Now, you can be open to the snowballs, but if you're not open to the snowballs, you're going to get hit by an avalanche.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, I got hit by an avalanche. Actually, you got hit by another dirt biker. And that was the gateway, the doorway in which God said, hey, here's an opportunity. And the beautiful part of your story to me, there's many beautiful parts of this experience. And we call it a story, but it's more of an experience. Because it's the truth, is the vulnerability that you stepped into, to be open to being taught by yourself, by others. And in the moment, my experience is that the moment one is open to being taught, vulnerable, is the moment they themselves embrace teacher. It's like, you know what? I get to have some assistance here. Okay, what would you like some assistance with? It's like, God, I get to have some assistance here. Okay, what would you like to have some assistance with? Hey, Heather, love, I'm dealing with this stuff. Hey, boys. It's like, I deserve to have some assistance here. Okay. And it's like the answer's, when someone is vulnerable and open, no matter how they got there, the information flows. So it reminds me of like, okay, then who was blocking the flow the whole time?
I was. Without question.
Without a question.
And it was the stories that society placed on me about what it was to be a man, to be tough, to never falter. And it's like all these things, I thought those were the things that made me strong. The paradox is when I let go of them,
Yeah.
I became strong.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, emotionally. But I had to let go of some of those things that they just weren't correct, right? And I had to soften.
To be soft. And we mentioned this a few minutes ago. When you were in those settings where you were kind of stressed out, your cognition failed you.
Yes.
But as you soften and there's this openness, what happens with your cognition?
Well, so I've learned how to, first of all, know that I'm okay no matter what. And nothing's that big of a deal. And so when you start to change that story and then you get into something that's a little bit difficult, you're able to regulate, and so I take my time now. I don't force things. I don't force decisions and everything. And when you kind of drop in and you try to regulate your nervous system, that's something I learned through yoga, right? I didn't realize that
breathing.
I was caught in fight or flight my whole life.
Yep.
I'd had people say to me multiple
Which
times.
one would you say you were most of the time in? Fight or flight? So sympathetic, fight or flight, or parasympathetic, rest and chill?
For sure, I was in fight or flight always.
Always. 90+%.
Always.
Yeah.
I think the only time that I wasn't was hopefully during 3 minutes of REM sleep or something a day, right? Like it was one of those deals where it was like I didn't realize it, and people had told me for years. They were like, "Danny, you have to breathe." I didn't know what they're talking about. I was like, if I quit breathing, I die. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I had multiple, whether it was like physical therapists or massage therapists or whatever. You've got to breathe.
So what do you know that means now?
Well,
breathe.
Well, you have to breathe really deep, right? And so the breath that I try to use the most, I do it when I'm in my pickup truck, is that Ujjayi breath, right? Where you go in through the nose and out through the nose.
And how does that regulate your nervous system?
Well, your whole nervous system just starts to calm down. It's like it realizes when you pace your breath and it's a deep breath, you will start to calm down and you'll start to regulate. Versus the opposite, you take those short, shallow breaths, which I think every time that I ran into something difficult in the past, I was already in short breath. But then I started breathing shorter and quicker because I was putting pressure on myself, right? Which ramps up. And so as I calmed down and realized everything was going to be okay, then my mind would expand and open, and I'd start seeing things very, very clearly.
Yeah.
And seeing things as more as truth, right? There's more, okay, it wasn't even about seeing, and I've said this before, but there's two different, I can articulate something to you and you can understand the concept. Completely different when that concept sinks into your heart and you feel it, right?
So as you jump into the Ujjayi breathing, that diaphragmatic, sympathetic breathing, I hear you saying you have a mental experience, you have an emotional experience,
Yes.
you have a spiritual experience,
Yes.
and they're literally all tied in one experience.
Yes.
And now that you know that and have and practiced that even in your truck, how's that blessed the relationship you have with your children, with your boys, your wife?
Well, it just creates space around everything, because the reality of it is, if we're in fight or flight, right, you're making very quick decisions and you're not really processing. You're not making decisions from your heart. You're making them from your head, and really, you're not even making them there. What you're really doing is you're just stuck in past experiences, right? So in other words, we're on autopilot.
Yeah, you're in a pattern.
Yeah, we're just patterning is all we're doing. But we're patterning with a bad energy, a hard energy. And then you learn how to soften, and better information comes in, and then you hand better information out. So the reality of it was, I didn't just heal from this accident. My whole family healed.
Yeah.
We all got better because his dad calmed down and learned how to communicate more from the heart.
Yeah.
Everybody's value went up. Everybody felt better about themselves. The crazy thing is, I was 270 pounds when I got in the accident. I mean, I was heavy and I wasn't healthy. And when I started working out, trying to get better, I never asked anybody in my family to go to the gym with me. I never asked them to eat different, nothing. But shortly after I started doing well, I noticed that they all did well. Every single person in my family is extremely healthy. They're extremely fit.
Yeah.
They look amazing. They feel good. And so the reality of it is that power of influence is so important, and we don't realize that everybody's watching you all the time. Like the world tells us to kind of like get involved and tell our kids they got to be the best at everything and helicopter them and get them the best teachers, get them the best athletic advisors and everything. And it's like that they're going to turn out. And the reality of it is that doesn't work. You just need to love them. And then from there, you start to become the person you would like them to be. And they'll do it naturally.
What I hear you saying is you shifted the energy by you shifting the energy.
Yes.
It's like there's this Dr. Lipton. I love his quotes. We got his quotes on my walls in here. And the moment we change our perspective, we rewrite the chemistry of our bodies. And so, what I hear you saying then is, by you doing that for your own self, it literally begins to rewrite the chemistry in your body, but also potentially, and which I know this to be true, in the bodies of others in your space.
Yes.
It's like it's just the natural law of things. I tell people all the time, because people come and we talk about immunity and we talk about health and we talk about all these things. However, when one takes on their health, the collective immune system is enhanced. The earth breathes as one takes on their health. It's like, it's not just your health and your health and your health and my health. It's our collective health. It's our collective immunity. It's our collective consciousness. And I love experiences like this, Danny, because for you, for you to be the person that you were, which was amazing, and walk through this experience and emerge in a space that you're open to learn and expand and take on your life in a whole new way. Have you found joy in it? In the process?
For the very first time in my life, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
And I really am. It's crazy because all of the things that I wanted to experience in life, right? I wanted my children to be healthy and happy and to do well. And I wanted my relationship with my wife to be good and my business to do well and all those things, right? Like that was my intention. Mm-hmm. And all too often our intention doesn't line up really well with our actions because and it's all the paradox that you're talking about. It's like this is what I'm trying to do, and then we try to force it. And all I had to do was just soften and start to care about myself and treat myself well, and everybody around me started to heal.
Dude, that gives me goosebumps. That's the truth. So the allowance, the humility, the vulnerability, I call it the openness to actually being wrong.
Yes.
There's such a, it's like, wait a second, because the old Danny would have said, dude, what are you doing right now?
Yes.
But this Danny, the authentic Danny, is like, hey, thanks, buddy, for the experience, because now you know the duality, you know the paradox. Mm-hmm. So you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and you emerge into the light as you experience the truth of who you are through an injury. And now, are you still going through a brain healing process?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and what do you know about that process?
Well, I mean, it takes time. Most of the healing's going to happen, early on. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I wasn't given the best information. It took me a while, and I found you and started working out of your Murray office, right? And so we started doing some of the rehabilitation work. But what's crazy is I noticed that as I was doing that work, which a lot of it had to do with vestibular balance and everything, as I was doing that, mm-hmm. it helped my emotions regulate.
Yeah.
Our emotions have a lot to do with physical, right? It's like, where are you at physically? If things aren't firing properly, and you talked about this, and I love this, right? The whole biology of everything. It's like as you start to calm down, uh-huh. your body can do amazing things. But if we stay in fight or flight all the time, we're not running optimally. Yeah. And so that's another thing that I started realizing was, what do I want to be? What do I want to look like? A lot of times people that knew me before, and they see me because I was really heavy, I was really out of shape, and they're like, dude, what did you do? And I tell them.
So they see Danny, the old,
yeah.
And now they see you, and what do they say? What do you tell them?
It freaks them out. I mean, I'm no, for real. I'm
like, what? Yeah.
I'm 51 years old.
Yeah.
I'm a grandpa, and but physically, when I'm in the gym, especially if I spin my hat backwards, people think I'm a lot younger, right? Mm-hmm. But the people who knew me, I had a super long gray beard and everything. They see me and they're like, dude, you look 20 years younger than
Oh,
you did.
yeah.
Like, what's going on? And I'll tell them, because, and this is a good example of how the world gets everything wrong. The world wants to talk about like how many grams of protein I'm sucking down and what supplements I'm taking and all this stuff, right? And it's like,
yes.
like,
I
that's
can't
the
agree
world
with you
we're in.
more. Yeah.
We have to monetize everything.
And what's the truth?
The truth is, okay, diet matters, exercise matters. But the third component that we never talk about is how do you feel about yourself?
Amen.
Your body cannot become optimal and start to heal itself when you're in fight or flight.
It's foundational.
Yes, yeah. And the thing is, like, it's not hard to learn. It's not hard to learn about your nervous system. We just don't teach it. We don't teach the most important stuff out there, right? I was doing this yoga in the park. There's a group that meets every Sunday up at Sugar House called the Good Intentions Club. Most of them are younger. They get together, they do yoga for an hour, then go jump in the river, right, and do a cold plunge, and then they play volleyball and stuff. But there's this guy that just happened to be walking by a couple weeks ago, and I could just feel him. And I didn't know why I went that day. I was going to go to church with my wife, but for some reason I just felt like I needed to go. But they started doing this activity, and I just stayed on the outside, right? And all of a sudden I see this guy walk up, and he's a mess, right? Like I could see it. And so I just walked up and started talking to him. And he was just somebody who was walking around the park and felt drawn in energetically, right? And I told him right away, I was like, I'm here for you today. And I was. And the reality of it is, you know, we're talking and he was getting some of the concepts, but because he was caught in fight or flight, his brain was spinning. And I told him, I said, you know what? We need to get you to regulate for a minute so that you can open your heart and start to hear some of the things I'm telling you. So we went down and we got in the water. And what happens when you jump in water up to your neck that's super cold is, right? Like, and I told him, close your eyes. I held his hand, close your eyes, breathe really deep. And as he did that, his nervous system calmed down. And when he got out of the water, he started crying. And he told me, he says, I've never felt like that. I said, well, what do you feel like? He says, I feel like God's hugging me right now.
Beautiful.
And he said, he told me, he said, I had this crazy thing happen while I was sitting in the water and I calmed down. He said, I had this surreal spiritual experience where he said that God came into his heart and told him, everything's going to be okay.
And A, it's water.
Yeah.
B, it's his willingness and openness to do it. You're describing something that's used to me, the word that just came up for me when you were sharing that experience is true baptism.
Yeah. You know what's funny is his sister showed up. He called his sister that was coming to visit him that day and said, come up to the park. And he was just so high on life and happy. And when she got there, he started explaining what was going on. And he said, and then I was baptized. And, you know.
So it is. Yes, awesome, yes, you know? Yeah.
Because I had the same thought in my head. Like, didn't say it out loud, but I was like, that's a baptism. Like this guy literally feels like a new person. And it's crazy
and
because.
He expressed being hugged by God.
Yeah. But when we jump in the water and it's, generally speaking, the world teaches us to get out. And that's what we do. And if we do that, then we've denied ourselves the blessing of calming down, right? And figuring out, getting the nervous system to really regulate and calm down. But as we do that, it's like possibilities just open up, and then you start to feel the world for the first time.
So he goes from this fear state, the water, his body has this reaction, this experience with the water, this cold water, and it moves him into this parasympathetic state where now he's open to be connected to source or to God. Now he's open to being connected to himself and open to any message that you may share.
Yeah, yes. Well, I think that we're walking around all the time thinking that we're okay and we're looking for new information, right? But in this day and age where the information is so easy, what we don't realize is that we're so inundated with information, you're not going to hear a lot through the noise because you've got to calm down to learn. But what are we doing? We're speeding up. We're watching more and we're trying to, it's like, you know, you find 7 things in 10 minutes in here that you must do in your life to change. And you feel that way, but you don't pick one, right? And it's like, so we always think we're headed in the right direction, but we're not slowing down enough.
You and I have talked about this where it's interesting to me, and I think it's part of the process of the paradox, that our ears are actually attached to our head right next to our brain. Now, what you're describing is this other experience where now the listening is coming through your heart.
Yeah.
and then comes into your beautiful brain and creates this beautiful, expansive idea. When I see that, it's like, oh, I get to listen. So my ears are now on my heart, and as I listen, it's I see when you describe these situations and these experiences, I see the tree of life. There's this expansive process where, oh, here's some new possibilities, some new ideas, and especially for this gentleman you're describing in Sugar House Park, it's like now, oh, here's a tool, cold water, that you would like to use in your life to assist you in connecting with yourself. And in so doing, you remember that you're always connected to God.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what's fascinating about this to me? This all started for you. And it started before that, but in a traumatic event.
Yes.
Where, and you listened to the messages, and you were vulnerable and humble, and to say, hey, I deserve some assistance here, God.
Yeah.
And thank you for that.
I think he just kept throughout the years saying, hey, Danny.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. Hey, I need your attention.
Snowballs.
Yeah.
And then avalanche.
And I was not hearing him until I got nailed.
And so I hear you. I hear your experiences, and I see gratitude everywhere that's popped out for you, because of you.
Well, there's this huge paradox, right? It's like if you want to get strong, then you have to work out, and when you work out, you're going to feel weak. So it gives you the opposite of what you're going for. And that's what the world does all the time. So super unregulated, super scared at the very beginning of this, right? So what's the difference now? I'm more regulated, never scared than I've ever been. But I had to go through that, and I had to lift that weight to learn that and to take that tool and to put it in my bag. And it's later that when you start seeing the success or you start seeing the change, that's when we can start to be grateful. But it's very hard to be grateful when it's just all pain at the very beginning.
No, I get it.
But here's the thing. Anybody out there that's going through a traumatic brain injury, the first thing is get in here and get looked at, because what happens is, and I learned this while I was doing the therapy, it's like, we're going to push you until we can get you to spike. So we start doing some balance stuff. And as soon as the balance starts to go, the emotion spikes. And it's like, okay, now we got to back it down and start again. And so we need to get in here and we need to go through these processes, because there's something biologically that's happening in here that's getting us back to normal. And we need that. But the other thing is to just, be kind to yourself and know that you can come out of this better than you went into it. Every single, if you think about it, any story that's, worthwhile that people latch on to, it doesn't matter what movie you're talking about or whatever, right? It starts with hardship. Nobody cares about your successes till they hear how you started.
Yeah.
So the reality is, reframe it. God's not upset with you. The world doesn't suck. It's not the end, but you've just been given an opportunity to grow in a way that you're never going to grow unless you went through it. And so it's really strange, but I will tell you now, and it took me forever to get to this point, I got gratitude in stages, because there's so many stories behind this story, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that I had to realize was, that I was going to be okay. And then when I started realizing I was going to be okay, then I was better in this area. Then I was better in that area. Then I was more connected to my children. Then my family's getting healthier. Then we quit worrying about money, and the money came in faster. It's like, you had to go through that. Just sit when you're scared and know that you're going to be okay, and breathe. Breathe deep, and you'll feel God's there.
Yeah.
But we have to go through these things sometimes.
It's such an amazing paradox. And it's like, you beautifully describe something there about life that's actually a physiological thing too. And we call it neuroplasticity. However, if you look at your process through all the life experiences, that's a neuroplastic. It became very flexible, as opposed to the rigidity of your experience before. You go through this experience, and now life is very neuroplastic. It's flexible, it's pliable, it's elastic, it's possible. And I just find I love these conversations, bro, because it's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing that God, our experience are so intertwined, and how, as you're open to it, all of these beautiful lessons come along. And that's why I love when gratitude pops out.
Yeah.
Because gratitude is a very neuroplastic, flexible experience. It's like, oh, I'm just grateful that I got a new pair of shoes. Or like, I'm grateful that my buddy Danny decided to come on the podcast. Or like all of these things.
Yeah.
Like I was out pulling weeds yesterday, and I'm like, I love my weeds. These are these, I call them morning glories. I think that's what they call. They're the greatest little climbers. They just climb up stuff. They choke out my trees, so I get them out of there. But it's like, man, it is the most amazing thing to live life from the space that you're describing so beautifully. And
well, I think a lot of times, we look at the weeds and our nervous system isn't regulated, and so what happens is we get really upset and we're latched onto this story. It's when we let go of the story and start to see the beauty of it, right? And see that now you've had an opportunity to take care of your plant, right? To show love to your plant. You're going to love something that you put effort into, right?
Yeah.
And so the reality of it is just changing our story. So this is another thing that I found is it's like, whatever it is that you expect energetically, you're going to find. And so the reality of it is, if you're going to a difficult meeting later on today and you're talking to yourself about how the conversation is going to go, and this guy is a jerk and he says it this way and he sees it that way, and you play this story out in your head, it's exactly what you're going to find.
Yeah.
But if you're driving there and you say, things haven't always been the best, but this could be different this time.
You and I had a conversation about that recently with something you were dealing. I'm like, yeah, that's what you're describing. It's like, no, fix my expector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a buddy last night. We were headed to a viewing, and he was talking about some problems he was having at work, right?
Yeah.
And he talked to me about this meeting that he's going to have in the future. And this is what the owner is going to say. And I was like, yeah, that is what he's going to say. But how much of that is your fault?
Yeah.
Because that's your expectation.
What are you accountable to? Yeah.
Because that's your expectation. And so now you're working in a way because that's your expectation. I don't think that you left him a lot of room to say anything different.
Yeah.
But if you change your expectation, what happens is it comes out in your body of work, and now you become a different employee to him.
Yeah.
So whose fault is it really?
Yeah.
And the reality of it is we can only control ourselves, but we need to control ourselves because all too often we're giving our power to other people. We're saying this is the way it's going to go. Well, if you're self-defeating and think it's not going to work, you're right. Mm-hmm. But if you know that you're going to find a way through it and it's going to be a positive experience, you're also right. Mm-hmm. So which one are you going to choose? Because when you start to choose into the positive outcomes of life, it changes who you are. It changes your biology. It's like the reality, I'm so grateful that I'm healthy now, right? But it's only partially diet and exercise. The real reason I'm healthy is because I started to regulate. Before my accident, I was on Ambien, Losartan, Wellbutrin, Xanax, Adderall for 23 years.
Yeah.
I was on all that stuff, and I just did not know how in the world could you live without it, right? And then as I calmed down and fixed what the true problems were, the biology changed, my functionality changed. I didn't need any of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's the true essence of healing.
Yeah.
And so for that, man, I am so grateful.
Yeah,
brother.
Right?
Thanks for coming on this little thing we do called the Two Thumbs Up podcast.
Yeah. Thanks
I
for
appreciate
letting me come in. I feel the energy. I feel the love. This is healing too, right? To be able to come in and to talk about how things went, right?
To have a free fall conversation with no agenda is between friends is it's one of the podcast day is a beautiful day.
Yeah.
So, brother, thank you. We love you. Grateful for you. We'll do some more yoga in our lives. We're the 50-year-olds in the class, and anyway, I love you. Thank you very much.
Love you too.
Guys, thanks for popping into the Two Thumbs Up podcast. We're grateful for you. We thank you. And again, Danny, thank you. And we will see you down the road. Thank you, guys.